The Legend of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Part 1, Chapter 31, Realisation. Donatello stopped typing and uttered with sudden realisation, "That Rhino and Warthog from earlier, could they be those two thugs from that alley the other day? They seemed to recognise me and shared several physical similarities with the criminals I knew. But how and why would they be mutated like that? Like me? Maybe that's what that chemical J does," Donatello said to himself slowly as if savouring his thoughts. "I'll have to do some tests on the sample Mikey and Raph found, and this Saki chemical, but it can't just be a coincidence that this warehouse is in possession of a similar chemical to our blood that also creates mutations. Anyway, I best take all the rest of this away with me." He dug his hands into his belt one final time and retrieved a USB stick. "Finally, I have a use for carrying this everywhere," he thought to himself as he transferred all the files. Donatello may have found something interesting in the box of components he casually flicked through. However, for once in his life, he had no idea what anything was and moved on to a box of documents. One particular page made his heart skip a beat. It appeared to show a blueprint for some kind of sphere-shaped unmanned tank with giant drill attachments and massive gun-like appendages all over it. It was titled Technodrome and was signed by a man named Baxter Stockman and dated from February 2003. He found a further page and glanced over a design for a small object about the size of a footrest in a family room. It had two legs and looked like a metal Joey kangaroo, but had no upper limbs and a head that was taken up fully by a mouth full of great metal teeth. It also had a massive radio receiver attached to its head, and a note which read, "Can trace Saki chemical-based creatures." Again, it was signed by Baxter Stockman, but this one was dated from March 2007. It was clear now. TCRI were determined to take over the world. They were not afraid of harshly dealing with those who got in their way, and most worryingly, the Turtles were now on their radar as troublemakers. All of this spelt incredibly serious trouble for Donatello and his family. "I have to get out of here and warn the others," Donatello whispered. He dashed to the door, but stopped when it burst open to the glorious sight of Master Splinter. "You and your brothers have an obscure way of interpreting my instructions. I am not a fan of it," he began to rant. Donatello interrupted. "Dad, Amado Saki is trying to dominate the planet with these." He handed his dad the blueprints. After giving both the documents a long look, Master Splinter's eyes turned from anguished anger to sorrowful sadness. "This is very grave," he replied, folding the sheets carefully and placing them in the aged pockets of his black trousers. It seemed as the Turtles left the warehouse with Master Splinter leading the way out of the building that their father had defeated a majority of the remaining ninjas. They walked past various unconscious men and women. Most were splattered with blood, but all were breathing. Master Splinter did not believe in killing unless he absolutely had to, and he had no reason to do so that night, or at all thus far in his life. As long as they were not harming him or his family anymore, they had permission to live. He also never engaged in combat with anyone younger than 10 years of age, which a couple of the ninjas had been that night. Instead, he had made sure to incapacitate all of their teammates and allow them to make the sensible choice of running and hiding, which they had done. Once they were out of the building, Master Splinter reassured them that Raphael would recover, as Leonardo and April had successfully tended to his injuries. The five trudged back to the lair, with Master Splinter carrying Raphael every step of the way. "How do you know so much about the Shredder?" April asked. Splinter's ears went into deep thought mode. "I read, I watch the news, I told you all of this the other day." He ended his reply with an edge of irritability. Donatello looked at his father and noticed something unmistakable on his shirt. He realised with a jolt of surprise where he recognised the foot symbol from, and added to this, I saw a similar foot symbol on the walls of the warehouse to the one you wear on your suits. A red variation. Master Splinter looked down at his black and torn suit in what could have been dismay or possibly regret. I was donated this suit by someone. I don't know its origins. April noticed a thread of uncertainty in the rat's voice and knew he was not telling the entire story. Donatello had failed to notice this and bought the story completely. Leo and Mikey were too tired to pay attention to anything. Splinter then added, I think we are just as safe in the lair as we are on the surface. I take back my previous remarks, and if we can find out more about how to suspend the Shredder's plans, then we should. In the meantime, I feel it best if you, he turned to April, were to continue training with us. You are part of this now, and you are going to need all the protection and defence possible. Raphael had been put to bed by Master Splinter. His deep wound to his right wrist had stopped bleeding, but even with his mutant power of advanced healing, it would take at least a week to be completely restored. Master Splinter had said Raphael would not be able to train during that period of recovery. Leonardo had said Raphael would never agree to this. Master Splinter had said he would chain his son to the wall if he had to. Nobody had doubted that. Donatello spent that night in his lab analysing the two samples of sucky chemical and chemical J that he had nicknamed mutagens, as it was quicker to say, in comparison to his own blood and samples from his brothers and father. It seemed that the two chemicals both shared similarities with his own mutagenic blood, with some minor genetic alterations, but what struck him as odd was actually with the blood samples and how his and his brother's blood appeared as more human than turtle, when it should theoretically be the opposite. He assumed he had taken a faulty sample and tried again. Still more human than turtle. He also tried his father's DNA, but this came back as more human than rat. Damn it! His deoxyribonucleic acid identifier must be on the blink. He had built it out of a food blender, a Darth Vader voice changer helmet, and a few spare parts his dad had found in a dumpster outside New York University, so it was by no means perfect. He would have to find another one somewhere, or risk building a faulty one again. Oh, the hardship and pain of science, he moaned to himself sadly.